I started writing historical fiction when I was dealing with postpartum depression after my second child was born. And at that time I was heavily involved in the Renaissance fairs, and my character was a real character who had lived in the 1500s, and I was examining her life, and she had 8 children and 2 lived. I decided I wanted to write her story and give her a happily ever after.
I think it's just like the idea of like love and like all the like gestures that they do. I think that's like kind of what drew me. I feel like it's kind of hard now to like find guys that like actually do those kind of like acts that like the books write. That's why I'm like, okay, a man written by a woman, I low-key love that.
It's the fantasy of he knows what you're thinking, right? And he can anticipate your needs. Some of those things are not realistic, but the idea that someone would make some sacrifices on behalf of their partner, that's not unrealistic.
These books do portray, I think, like a man and a woman. So it's like, it's very typical, like, you know, like cis relationship when you do read these books. Smut books in particular tend to have that like dark masculinity figure when it comes to the males, and then like when it comes to like the girls, it's very like, oh, like a damsel in distress.
The romance novels of the 70s and 80s were very sexual experienced older man with young virgin. A lot of times she says no, but her body says yes. It's a rape fantasy for a lot of people, especially as women became more empowered over their own sexuality and the right to their own bodies. And so you see now consent being a strong theme in all books, which some people don't find attractive. So there are still genres called dark romance, where consent is dubious.
I do enjoy reading it, but I don't look for it in like a relationship. Like when I read, I always tell people I read for pleasure. Like I'm not reading for information. I like can tell the difference, but it's like when I read, it's just entertainment. It's like a little getaway. Like I'm like, oh, like a little mafia book. I'm like smut romance. I'm like, I like it.
It's written by women for women. So what does the woman, what's she gonna find attractive? What's gonna make her catch her breath? Some of these images, they're tropes that they get used for a reason because people respond, right? But does that make a woman think, well, I'm only gonna date Henry Cavill?
Because like in books, it's always like, oh, like he does these like grand gestures and like the like little like sweet like gestures that they do in books, I think is what I kind of like expected. I want a happy ending. So I'm like, listen, you know, this is my entertainment, this is my getaway, like, I just want like, you know, they end up together and like, they have like a little family, if that's what's towards the end, but like, that's what I look for, like a cute romance book. And then if I read more like smut books, it's definitely more like, I'm reading this for entertainment. So I'm like, okay, like, I want some fun in this.
These books made me happy in a way that historical fiction does not. You get into the gritty elements of history, but then everyone dies. Well, it's nice when people don't die, right? If you picture Shakespeare's comedies where everyone ends up in bed versus his tragedies where they all die, I chose bed, literally. Okay.